Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Suranjali Seal, and like I always say, if you are somebody that loves literature and is all about literature, then this is the channel for you. In our video today, we're going to talk about a literary theory which is known commonly as new criticism. Now, I just want to highlight a little bit of the importance of why do we study as literature students, why do we emphasize, why do we study, why literary theory is actually a part of our curriculum. Why do we study literary theory? So I'll just give you an example from another subject, say political science. So from political science, you have, I think that those of you who have studied political science, and you must have heard of thinkers like, in general, right, these are thinkers that are celebrated all over the world. You must have heard about Hobbes, Locke and Rousseau. These are political thinkers. They have given political theories that are very celebrated. They are celebrated all over the world, and I think that most of us know about them. So why do we study these theories that these people have written? Why do we study Hobbes? Why do we study Locke? And why do we study Rousseau? Why do we study about the divine right of kings? These different theories that these different thinkers and writers and people of genius, men and women of genius, have given us over a period of time. Why do we study them? It's because, it helps us understand how far we have come as a society, what were the things that were prevalent then, and how are we functioning today, or how did we function in a way to reach up to this point in time, right, as a society, as a civilization. How did our thought process develop? Under what circumstances did our principles and our ideals develop as a people, as the human race, as part of a society? So it gives us a deeper understanding of the subject itself. We understand the justice system a little better when we know how we have evolved, right, over time. Why equality is important today, why certain laws are important today, why we are striving towards democracy. Why? We read about what has happened. We read about the different theories that give us a critical ability to actually analyze these different things about the society. I'm just giving this very simply, just for the sake of example and clarity, that we do this so that we understand how the society works a little better. We do this so that we understand the subject altogether a little better, and it enhances our critical ability, right? So things that are that seem simple are not all that simple. There are many layers to them, and when we broaden our system of knowledge by studying these different things, it kind of makes the subject a little bit more clearer for us. Okay, so similarly, even in literature, we have literary criticism and literary theory. Why do we study? Because it enhances our critical ability. We study literary theory so that we can actually amass and gain a lot of knowledge from different branches of subjects, from different subjects from all over the world, writers and thinkers from all over the world. We actually amass a lot of knowledge, and that gives us this critical power to actually analyze the text a little better, understand the periods of time a little better, the ages of literature a little better, what was the mentality like, what was the society like. And like I always said, time and time again, I have repeated this, that literature is a representation of life, or it is a reflection of life itself. So whatever happens in the society will find place in literature always. So these things that are happening in society affect the minds and sensibilities of the writers, of the thinkers, and then they produce works, they produce literary theories that we study. We broaden our knowledge system, and it helps us analyze all the works of literature, all the texts, all the movements a little bit better. So it is to of course, like, we are supposed to enhance our critical power, so that when we write answers, it kind of elevates the answer to another level when we apply these theories in our answers. But also it enables us to we appreciate the literature and thinking and the strands in society from all over the world a little bit more. We understand the world a little bit more, so to say. So literary theory is really important because it enhances our critical ability as literature students, and also we can appreciate the work, we can appreciate the time, we can appreciate the writers, the genres, and everything that centers literature a little bit more. So having said that, we're going to begin with new criticism in our video. We're going to talk about the concept. This is a detailed explanation of this literary theory. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Okay, so let us have an overview. Okay, first, like I always do in my all my other videos, I've done this. We're going to look at it simply. We're just going to understand the concept first, and then we're going to go into all those concrete details and definitions. Okay, so simply, new criticism is to analyze and find meaning within literature by utilizing just the text rather than considering along with it the outside influence or intentions of the author, the cultural background, or the historical significance that may have gone a long way to influencing or impacting the said work of literature. So, it is not that, there's no rocket science over here. There is no complications over here, so to say. It is very simple. Just understand this. As literature students, what do our teachers usually tell us in our colleges and universities? They tell us that do a background check. Whenever you pick up, say, just like I think a week ago, I had done this book recommendation video where I had talked about the Bronte sisters, the works by the Bronte sisters. And before that, I had given you a whole video on the life of the Bronte sisters, the life and works of the Bronte sisters. This is what we have discussed. So in the Bronte sisters, I had told you, I had given a detailed account of the Bronte sisters' lives, right? And then when I did the book recommendation video, I had told you that how in the books there were episodes that were influenced from their lives itself. Like for example, the school in Jane Eyre was influenced from the real school that the Bronte sisters had attended. Then I told you that Agnes Grey is like an autobiographical novel where all the episodes are influenced by real episodes in Anne Bronte's life, Agnes Grey. So I told you this. So when you read the text, then you have that in mind, that this episode is from their life, this school is influenced from the real school that they went to. These kind of things we are taught as literature students, that do a background check. If you are reading something about Wordsworth, you have to know and have an idea of what romanticism is. If you're reading something by T.S. Eliot, you have to know what modernism is. If you're reading something, say, from Chaucer, if you're reading Chaucer's age, you have to know the features of the age of Chaucer. You have to know the importance of the Canterbury Tales. When you're reading the characters of the Canterbury Tales, you have to do a background check on how the society worked during the age of Chaucer, because he took these people, these characters of the Canterbury Tales are inspired from real life people from the society that he belonged to. So, like I said, the background does matter when you're studying literature. Through ages, this has happened. Everybody has stressed on the fact that the writer's life, the writer's age, the age to which a particular writer belongs to, his sensibilities, his experiences in life, and his thought processes do go a long way into influencing the work that he produces. Okay, so this is what we have been taught. Okay, now during the, say, 20th century, what had happened under modernism? This is the modernism period we're talking about. So what happened is, there was this new sort of thinking, okay, where there were certain thinkers, certain writers, people of eminence, who started saying that you do not have to look at the background at all. You look at just the text itself. When you're reading Agnes Grey, this is just an example, okay, just an example. When you're reading Agnes Grey, like I said, it's like an autobiography. She is influenced by real episodes in her life and then she writes it down. But when you're reading it, you just negate all of that. You don't take into consideration only, and the writer, her life, you don't take into consideration. You just read whatever is given in the text itself. So you look at the text as the text itself as a whole. You don't have to consider all these outside influences. You don't have to consider the very bad condition in the school. You don't have to consider the fact that Anne Bronte herself served as a governess, okay? That you don't have to take into account. You don't have to take into account any outside influence, not the life, not the experiences of the writer, not even the writer, okay? You don't have to even consider the writer himself or herself. You just have to consider the text, okay? So this is new criticism. Now, the thing is, the idea here is, why are we studying this? Is this how we are supposed to judge literature? Is this how we are supposed to study literature? That is, we just have to look at the text only. We don't have to care about anything else. No, this is just a strand. This was just a thought process that had developed during the time. And when we are studying this, you see this. Here you're saying don't take Agnes Grey, okay, as a autobiographical novel. Just look at it as a novel. You don't have to take into account Anne Bronte at all. And then previous writers are saying that the background does matter. You have to take into account the background because the background reflects in the work itself. It influences the work itself. Then what are you doing? You think, okay, this is a really good PhD topic. I mean, should I take it up as a research topic? Then you go and then you work towards a better understanding of the subject. You take new criticism and you take this other mode of thinking where you consider the background of the text, you mix that together, do a comparative study, do your research work and add to the field of knowledge. I'm just giving an example. So when you're taking up this research work, when you're studying these different strands in society, you're taking up this research work, you're leaving your mark for future people, future generations to read. And carry on from there, or to read and understand the differences in society. To read, you're actually, you are these different strands in society, we study for this critical ability. When you're doing your PhD work also, it's that critical ability that you have to actually pinpoint and take out points for yourself that will help aid our system of knowledge, right? So when we are studying new criticism also, don't just look at it like, don't make that mistake that tomorrow I will go and read only the text. I will not even consider the background of the writer. Don't do that. This is just a literary theory. Like we have divine right of kings in political science, here also we have new criticism. It's just a literary theory, but when you apply it, suppose you're reading Tradition and Individual Talent. I'm going to talk about it in a separate video. T.S. Eliot had written Tradition and Individual Talent. So there he actually talks extensively about features from new criticism. We'll talk about it later, but I'm just giving an example. In your answers, when you'll write down the features of new criticism as you're writing about T.S. Eliot's work, right, it will fetch you more marks. Also, it will give you a critical understanding and you will understand the whole thing as a whole, a little better in depth. So I hope that what I'm trying to say is clear. So what did I say before? And even now, we consider the background of the writer. But new critics, the people who propounded new criticism, said that don't consider anything outside of it. You just look at the text as the text itself. Okay, so new criticism is to analyze and find meaning within literature by utilizing just the text. So rather than considering along with it the outside influence or intentions of the author, the cultural background or the historical significance that may have gone a long way to influencing or impacting the said work of literature. So I think the concept is simply and very crystal clear, right? So now we're just going to look at the concrete concept and idea. New criticism was a formalist movement in literary theory that dominated American literary criticism in the middle decades of the 20th century. Now, what do we have to see here? We have to see at the word formalist, right? So there is this confusion that, okay, formalist and new criticism are the same. Formalist movement and the new criticism are the same things. So in one way it is, okay, but there are differences between the two. Actually, it's not even differences, there is one difference between the two and I'm going to talk about it. For now, just consider the concrete definition. So it was a movement, new criticism, which began in America and Great Britain, okay, at that time. It began there in the middle of the 20th century. It emphasized close reading. This is one concept, close reading of the text. I'm going to talk about it in another slide in this video itself. So it emphasized close reading, particularly of poetry, to discover how a work of literature functioned as a self-contained, self-referential aesthetic object. So when you talk about aesthetics, it's not about, you're not talking about looking at the text as, say, I'm going to talk about the writer, like I said, outside influence. No, it's self-contained and self-referential. That is, you'll get all the answers that you're searching for in the text itself. I had a teacher who used to tell us the text and nothing but the text. She used to say, of course, she used to suggest that we read the text so that, a detailed reading of the text is absolutely necessary for literature students. So that's what she used to say. But, what I'm trying to tell here is like it's the text, all of it. All of the ideas, all of the answers are in the text itself. Whatever you want to study, whatever you have to learn, you cannot find it without the text. Everything is within the text. So it is self-contained and self-referential. You don't have to refer to an author's life. You don't have to refer to the author's mood or the sensibility. The reference also that you're going to take is from the text itself. Every answer is within the text. So the movement derived its name from John Crowe Ransom's 1941 book, The New Criticism. This is a fact which we have to remember as literature students. So where did the word come from? It is the title of a book, The New Criticism. And who wrote the book? John Crowe Ransom in 1941. So this is from where we derived the name, The New Criticism. Now we're going to highlight that formalist movement which I talked about, okay? Now see, formalist new criticism was a formalist movement. So you have formalist movement and then you have its two branches, okay? So formalist movement, I'm going to talk about formalism in my next video. So here I'm just going to give you an overview. So you have formalism and you have its two branches. One is Russian formalism and the other one is new criticism. Russian formalism is, of course, it developed in Russia, and new criticism is in America and Great Britain. That's where it developed. So, you have to understand formalism is a movement itself. Under it, you have two branches. So you have Russian formalism and you have new criticism. So here we're talking about new criticism. So in literary theory, formalism refers to critical approaches that analyze, interpret, or evaluate the inherent features of a text. These features include not only grammar and syntax, but also literary devices such as meter and tropes. Okay, so the formalistic approach reduces the importance of a text's historical, biographical, and cultural context. Formalism rose to prominence in the early 20th century as a reaction against romanticist theories of literature, which centered on the artist and individual creative genius, once again placing the text itself in the spotlight to show how the text was indebted to forms and other works that had preceded it. Two schools of formalist literary criticism developed, Russian formalism and soon after Anglo-American new criticism. So see, I've just read the whole thing. I'm giving you this very simply, okay, the idea very simply. Now formalism, okay, it refers to critical approaches that analyze, interpret, or evaluate the inherent features of a text. You analyze everything that is within the text. So what does it include? These features include not only grammar and syntax. You're not only looking at the grammar, the words, you're not even looking at the syntax, how it is arranged and all. No, not just that. You're studying grammar and syntax, but also you're going to look at tropes. You're looking at meter. You're looking at, say, even literary devices like you have simile, metaphor, all of those technical things, you're looking at that. All of the technical things. If you're analyzing a poem, you're going to look at rhetoric devices. You're going to apply phonetics. All of the technical stuff that we study as literature students, you have to apply that while studying and analyzing the text. Critically analyzing the text, that is. So formalism is this. New criticism is also this, that you have to take into account grammar. You have to take into account syntax. You have to take into account, meter, trope. You have to take genre. You have to take, say, simile, metaphor, all of these literary devices. You have to take them into account. But what is the difference? Like I said, one small difference, but it's an important one. In formalism, you don't take into account the content, what the story is about, what the book is about. You don't take into consideration that. You just look at the technical stuff. But in new criticism, you look at all the technicalities, but you look at the content also. Content of the work that you're analyzing. So this is the small difference that is there. So, it came as a reaction against romanticist theories of literature. Like I told you, all those background you take into account. The writer is in the center of everything. The artist is in the center of everything. You actually just move the artist altogether away. You move all these outside influences altogether away and look at the text like a text itself, only as a text, without any outside considerations. So, new criticism developed as a reaction to older philological and literary history schools of the US North, which focused on the history and meaning of individual words and the relation to foreign and ancient languages, comparative sources and biographical circumstances of the authors, taking this approach under the influence of 19th century German scholarship. So, they are saying over here, it is a reaction to older philological and literary history schools which focused on all of this, considering all of it. They considered, the relation to foreign languages, the text that you're writing now, how is it influenced from authors from before. Like, many of the texts, rewriting of the text, say many of the texts are influenced, say, from Shakespeare. People have read Shakespeare's works and then you write another work. Influence from Shakespeare. So you're not going to look at what influence you have taken or where ancient text or which old text you have referred to. You're just going to look at the text itself. It doesn't matter if it's influenced from Shakespeare or not. You're just looking at the text itself. Then, the new critics felt that this approach tended to distract from the text and the meaning of a poem and entirely neglect its aesthetic qualities in favor of teaching about external factors. So they were saying that, you take time to read about the life of the Brontes, just for example, and then you take time to read about their life and all. And when you're reading the text, you're just saying it is influenced from their life. In shortcut, you're saying, you don't talk about the text in detail. You kind of undermine the relevance of the text itself. This is what new critics are saying. Okay, so new critics disparaged the literary appreciation school, which limited itself to pointing out the beauties and morally elevating qualities of the text as just subjective and emotional. Condemning this as a version of romanticism, they aimed for a newer, systematic and objective method. So it is not a subjective method, but a objective method that they are going to opt for. So this is new criticism. So I hope that the idea is clear. I hope that the little distinction between formalism and new criticism is also clear. We are going to look at the proponents of new criticism. Who are the people who propounded new criticism? We're going to talk about a few of them in the upcoming videos in detail, but I felt like you should know the people, the names of the prominent people who actually contributed to new criticism. So let's move on to the next slide. So these are some of the proponents or people of eminence who have actually contributed a lot towards this whole concept of new criticism. These are the proponents of new criticism, and we're going to look at them. The first is, of course, the works of Cambridge scholar I.A. Richards. I.A. Richards has written a lot of works, but amongst them, these three are the ones where he actually talks about new criticism extensively. His ideas that center new criticism, the concept of new criticism, features in this part. So this is practical criticism is one work, then you have the principles of literary criticism is another, and the meaning of meaning. These three are the works. We'll obviously talk about all of these later, but this is just a concept video, so these are a few points that you have to remember. So I.A. Richards, in these three works, he talks extensively. His ideas, whatever he talks about in these three works, contributes to the ideas of new criticism. Then you have Cleanth Brooks. I've included the picture of him. Then John Crowe Ransom. Remember the book that I talked of, from where new criticism, the term, has been derived. Then we have W.K. Wimsatt. Now, he is the one who gave the idea of intentional and affective fallacy. Now, affective fallacy I've already talked about in one of my shorts videos. So if you haven't watched that yet, please make sure you watch it. I've explained what affective fallacy is in that video. Now, intentional fallacy. Intentional fallacy is that it actually means a broader understanding. We'll talk about it very in detail when we talk about W.K. Wimsatt. But just know for now that intentional fallacy means that when you're analyzing the text, you don't have to consider the author's intentions at all. Why did he write the text? Suppose he was feeling sad, so he's writing about a sad thing. Suppose he was feeling happy, or he dedicated the work to somebody, or he loved somebody and that's why he dedicated the work to somebody. You don't have to take into account the intention of the author. You just look at the text itself. Then you have T.S. Eliot, of course. He, in his critical essays, his ideas, they contribute to new criticism. So in Tradition and Individual Talent, like I have mentioned before also, and Hamlet and His Problems, in which Eliot developed his theories or his notions of the theory of impersonality and objective correlative. So we are going to talk about Tradition and Individual Talent in detail. We're going to talk about Hamlet and His Problems in detail. These are very important texts in literary theory. So we're going to talk about impersonality and objective correlative there. But just so now you have to remember these few points regarding new criticism. So we're going to talk about the authors one by one. We're going to now look at the the concept of new criticism as we see it in poetry with regards to poetry. What does new criticism say when it comes to poems? Okay, so now let's have a look at how do we analyze poetry under new criticism. So a poem is treated as a self-contained and self-sustained unit of meaning. So, when we look at a poem, like we're always doing a background check, like I told you, right? Our teachers always tell us do a background check, know what is it about. Like there are some poems that are based off of an historical event, and then the poem we read and we know what is it talking about. But here, under new criticism, what they're telling us is that the poem is a self-contained and self-sustained unit, okay, of meaning. It has meaning in itself. So it's self-contained how? That everything, all the answers that you're looking for when you're reading the poem, when you're analyzing the poem, is within the poem itself. You don't have to look at external factors. Self-sustained, its importance is also derived by virtue of being the poem. The importance is not derived or dependent on external factors. For example, when you're reading T.S. Eliot's poems or you're reading Wordsworth's poems, you automatically feel like, okay, an important person, a very eminent writer has written it. So those factors should not actually determine the value of the poem. The value of the poem is determined via or through whatever it delivers to us readers. So that includes the form, it includes, say, the structure, it includes the content. You have to analyze all the technicalities that make up the poem and then determine its importance. So a poem is important because of itself, in itself. So it is self-contained and self-sustained unit of meaning. All the answers that you're searching for is not outside but within the text. So this is a self-sustained unit of meaning which does not have to be explained in terms of the author's personality or biography or in terms of historical and social factors. So like I said, literature is an expression of life. So whatever is happening in society will find place in whatever you produce. Literary expression always is influenced by life itself. So there are historical determinants, there are social determinants, but those do not find place in new criticism. You have to negate all of that. You don't have to take into consideration all of that. Then also you don't have to take into consideration the author's personality and his biography, because of course they have an influence, but new critics wanted to just look at the text, the concreteness of the text, the technicalities of the text. So you're analyzing the content, you're analyzing literary devices, you're analyzing the genre, you're analyzing the verse layout, you're analyzing all these things that go into making a poem, but you're not taking into account the external factors. So the task of the critic, therefore, is to make the closest possible examination of what a poem says as a poem. So it is not about what the poem is saying about someone, what the poem is saying about the writer, what the writer had in mind while writing the poem. None of that matters. The closest possible examination of what the poem says as a poem. So we have difference between prose and poetry. There are differences between the different types of poetry also. These are all concrete definitions, right? So a poem, what does a poem say as a poem? That is, by virtue of being a poem, what is its importance and what is it trying to say? So this is what new criticism is. Now, therefore, a text is autotelic. What does autotelic mean? Autotelic means that it speaks for itself. You don't need external factors to tell you what the text is about. You don't have external factors to highlight the importance of the text. It is autotelic. It speaks for itself. So a text should be judged for the text itself, the content, structure and form of the text. Now remember, in the first slide I had told you that there's a very important concept in new criticism, close reading. So this is what close reading talks about. This is exactly what close reading is. Close reading is the very fact that the text is autotelic. It speaks for itself. It is studying the content, structure and form of the text. So if there is a question about what does close reading talk about, under which criticism does, or literary theory does close reading feature, it is new criticism. So that is it for today, guys. This is the entire topic explained in the most simplest way possible and in as detailed a way possible. And if this video has been helpful for you, then please don't forget to like the video, share the video and subscribe to my channel for similar content. And till we meet again, I really hope that you stay healthy and happy. See you in the next one, guys.